And he's back. Um, this is a little risky. That original lecture on the syllabus is being uploaded, hopefully. And now we'll do an overview of the chapter. By the way, if this course were done live with me in a classroom in Alumni Memorial Hall, this is how I teach. Um, I'm a firm believer in book learning. You have to learn to read textbooks and master that information. We're not looking for people to become disciples of faculty. We want you to become independent learners. So I need to start textbook, which is here. And here's the textbook. This is Learning and Behavior, which I just finished teaching recently. And we start reading. I'm not sure where I was when I last did this. I'm at the end of chapter 2. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of chapter 1. Something is bothering me about the course homepage. I have to revisit that. Right. So you're going to find this lecture on this page. So the syllabus mini lecture will go there, and chapter 1 will go here. I've done time with the author of your textbook. And this is a going away party for when I left UCLA and came to the little land of Scranton. And this is before digital photography. This is a converted slide. This is me here in the middle. This guy got married in my basement. And this is a good friend of mine who's an MD, PhD anesthesiologist. And this over here is Mark Breedlove. His lab was one floor up from mine in the psych department. And I went from UCLA. I didn't go there. I got my PhD at the University of Maine. Mark went from UCLA to Berkeley, and now he's in Michigan. He's an amazingly nice guy, like unbelievably nice guy. You may not appreciate what this is, but it's a stuffed armadillo. And this is the mentor of the lab. And he used to have this in his office. And he decided that children loved it. And every time a child would come into the office, they get to play with this armadillo or armadillo, if you would prefer to spell it more, say it more appropriately. Steve, okay, so these are not going. You're not going to be tested on this, but I just, throw links in here to make things hopefully more interesting. And this is from 2015, showing that things don't show very much, and it's about an African American being shot by the police. It just keeps happening. And what can psychology tell us about that? So these chapters have opening vignettes. This is the opening vignette. And the book tries to go back to this to explain things as we zip through the chapter. And where does psychology come from? All books do this. And what I like this because Mark has an appreciation for evolution, and he doesn't start with Greek philosophers. He starts with us living in our the natural environment into which we evolved, and evidence from people living in a more natural state is used to give examples of things. And he points out how important your environment is to your survival. Now, this is a pretty amazing story about the birds and how these people from New Guinea, I think it's New Guinea, yes, New Guinea, they identified 300 and some different kinds of birds, and they brought in a professional, and he came up with basically the same number. So these people are not grunting through the forest. They are learning what's relevant to their survival. And one of the things that's relevant are animals that can hurt us. And that certainly has had an influence on our brain, which will come up later. One thing we didn't have to worry very much about in the majority of our evolutionary history was strangers. Today, we're surrounded by strangers, but in our roots, we largely lived with upwards of 100 to 150 people, and they were not strangers. And they probably were not running around shooting people by accident. There shouldn't have been virtually any false identifications. That's a very nice story. And then we get to the Greeks, and Aristotle knew a lot of stuff, and that didn't do anything. And he knew about illusions. That's a waterfall illusion. If you look at a waterfall for a while, running down, as they tend to do on this planet, and you look away, things will move up. And Aristotle knew that. Very clever. He also noticed, that drank a lot, had children that weren't in good shape. He was wrong about a lot. For one thing, he didn't think the brain was very important, but he knew some stuff. And then there's Plato and the parable of the cave, which our philosophy department loves. We have an honor society in psychology, and our guest speaker one year was a prominent philosopher from our school, and he told us and described how important it was. I won't test you on it, but it's part of our Western tradition. And Rene Descartes shows up over and over. He'll come up later. One thing to remember about Descartes is that he was a dualist. He believed in a non-corporeal mind, mystical mind, but he was also beginning to believe in the body. So he was a mind-body dualist. And it says he comes up again, I think, in chapter 3. So I'll hold off on that. And then the empiricist philosophers like John Locke, and there's blank slate, tabula rasa. We start off as a blank slate, and you can write anything you want on a blank slate. And early behaviorists believe that. It's certainly not true. And I've given you a link relevant to that. I'm not assigning the book, but Steven Pinker is a psychologist. He is wicked impressive and controversial. There's one person in the psych department who was not a big fan. Oh, darn. This is not the link I wanted. I'll have to fix this too. This is the link that I used when I made the lecture, but where am I, Steven Pinker? Well, there's some really, really good books here. I've read a lot of his stuff. How the Mind Works. All right, so I can't find the pretty book. So we'll go to the one that we have. And there is a hardcover. There we go. That's better. And it's called The Blank Slate. And that's kind of sarcasm, because if you look at the subtitle, it's The Modern Denial of Human Nature. So he believed and believes that if you believe you can just do anything you want with a human through environmental manipulations, you would have been in good company with some psychologists in the past, but it's not a very rational or scientifically supported position. If you have time, it's a big book. I do recommend the book. No doubt about it. Whoops. Okay. So there's the young Charles Darwin, and we'll discuss him later. I forget what chapter he's in. That's before he got all bearded up. And he is a co-discoverer of evolution by natural selection. Another discoverer is Alfred Russel Wallace. And there's the old Alfred Russel Wallace, but there's a picture in here of the younger Wallace. And boy, that guy had a look. So actually, Wallace discovering evolution by natural selection led him to write to Darwin to ask what he thought. And Darwin thought, oh my God, I've been working on this for 20 years, and this guy has the same theory. It's a good story. They collectively offered their theories together. Wallace was very gracious. Okay, so that's that one. And Washburn will come up later in the chapter. She was important, is important to the history of psychology. And more on natural selection. And now I came into psychology late in the behaviorist era, influenced heavily by Skinner, who lived on North Washington Avenue briefly in Scranton, PA, and his brother is buried in the Dunmore Cemetery. And Skinner was anti-theory and thought that you could, if you just understood the principles of behavior, you could apply them everywhere. That did not turn out to be true. And here are the psychophysics. And Germans are going to be important in a lot of this chapter. And if you haven't taken German, maybe you're lucky. I went to the prep and they made us take foreign languages. It was a living nightmare. There's a science to learning second languages. And after 12, for some of us, it's like impossible. But if you're dealing with a real German and you see a W, it's pronounced as a V. So that's Wilhelm Wundt. And yeah, there's an illusion that he saw, and you've certainly seen the horizontal vertical illusion. That's another one that Wundt dealt with. And the term psychophysics is important. You know, these early researchers thought, that you could do the, science just as well in psychology as you could with physics. And psychophysics was one place where, perception and sensation melded together. Psychophysics. And there's structuralism. Titchener. Um, Interesting story. Titchener moved to the United States, um, and he taught someone who was in my psychology department when I was in grad school. My guy was retired, but Titchener taught him, and Titchener had photographic memory, and he was the bomb. He really was the bomb. When he started his classes, they had to lock the doors. Nobody could come in. And the faculty had to sit in the front in his fundamentals lectures. Uh, he thought a lot of himself appropriately. And there's William James, who's still quite important. And he was important to the field of functionalism, and functionalism is related to natural selection, that behaviors have functions. And I'm not a fan of Wundt or William James very much. Uh, when one of his children was born, it stressed him out so much he spent like 2 years in Europe alone to get over the shock. And behaviorism coming up on my own. Ivan Pavlov. When I was in grad school, we were red-blooded Americans. We loved America. We loved capitalism. We didn't like commies. We didn't like, therefore, Pavlov. Uh, it, involuntary reflexes uh, didn't seem like free will, which we were a fan of. But it turns out that Pavlov was not a fan of communism either. And he was darn impressive and won a Nobel Prize in physiology or medicine for work he did before the learning stuff. And getting into behaviorism, Thorndike worked with cats, which is hard to imagine, and put them in puzzle boxes that they had to learn to get out of. And Watson, he was, the Behaviorist Manifesto. They turned on psychology having lots and lots of theories, and they said, let's stop worrying about theories. Let's just figure out behavior. And if we want to, we can go back to theories later. And there's Watson. He was a natty dresser. He also smoked. Everybody smoked. Um, he's a big name, no doubt about it. And Skinner followed in his tradition. And Skinner also did not want theories in his life. So the black box of the organism, he didn't care what went on in there. All he worried about was stimulus and behavior. And again, he lived in Scranton, PA on North Washington Avenue for a little bit. He didn't. I'm a neuroscientist, uh, I guess I'd have to say. And so I try to figure out what's going on inside that box, the organism box. And back to Germany and Gestalt psychology, Max Wertheimer. and Wolfgang Köhler. They were big Gestalt psychologists, and illusions were important to them. Um, I have an interesting Titchener story about them, but I'll spare you. And there were, in my day, when I was in grad school, and that was a while ago. When did I start grad school? 71, maybe. Uh, I I was at the University of Maine, Orono. We were the department was heavily behaviorist, but there were battle lines being drawn between cognitive psychology and behaviorism. And let's face it, uh, cognitive won. And so uh, cognitive psychologists love computer analogies. I do artificial intelligence research, machine learning. Nowadays, machine learning is teaching me a lot about how the brain works. And if you want a bright future, man, that's somewhere to go. I can give you links. Um, so the last time I saw, all right, the only time I saw Skinner talk, he was just trying to rip at cognitive psychology right to his death. He wouldn't give up, but cognitive won the field. Can't deny it. And here comes me. Yeah, there's a reference to the cognitive revolution there. Yeah, all right. We lost. I've gotten over it. Neuroscience aims to explore the brain and its workings directly, peeking inside the black box. This, by the way, is a figure that you're not responsible for trying to learn. We're going to deal with all this information later. Trying to memorize it here out of context is an exercise in futility. Just look at it, appreciate it, but no rational person, which means me, would test you on it. And here's another one. In class, because I'm a trickster, I'm Loki, I tell you to memorize this figure. What are you, crazy? You can't memorize that figure. What's that there for then? It's there to impress you with how many tendrils psychology has, how many subfields there are. I'm also big, by the way, on evolutionary psychology and certainly neuroscience. Where's neuroscience? Oh yeah. When I went to grad school, I was a biopsychologist, but I don't use that term anymore. I do neuroscience. Neuropsychology, by the way, is a clinical psychology profession uh, where they assess people for cognitive issues and try to figure out what's going on when people begin or exhibit cognitive deficits. So don't learn that figure, but appreciate that figure. And how psychology, oh yeah, psychology is vibrant and growing. So there we are, vibrant and growing. And of course, we have a tradition of excluding women and minorities. But boy, certainly on the women's side of things, we've gotten over that. And oh boy, all right. Oh, this is well, wait, the minorities are the women are going to come later, but Kenneth Clark and his wife developed, not Clark, yes, Clark and his wife um, developed a test that I've given you a link to, which really depresses me, the Clark doll experiment. I can't look at this without being disturbed. So let's look at it.
Which doll is the black doll? And which one is the white doll? That one. Which doll is the pretty doll? Which doll is the nice doll? Which doll is the bad doll? Which doll is the nice doll? Which doll is the bad doll? And why is that doll pretty? Because he's white and he has 2 eyes. Which doll is the ugly doll? Why is that doll ugly? Because he's black. Which doll looks most like you? Like me? Yeah, which one looks like you? And that one. Okay. That doll.
Oh my God, I'm tearing up. That is so depressing. Um, okay, now we're back to women, which is good. So I got into the field. I got my PhD around here, and a third of PhDs in psychology were women then, and the book is 2012. Now it's like 70%. Yeah. Uh, this is a discipline that's very friendly to women participating. That Clark Doll thing. And these are PhDs by minorities. Look at that y-axis. It only goes up to 10%. So we are lagging behind here for sure. The 4 principles of psychology are core to this course, and each chapter brings these up. And I hope I've remembered to email you a little survey. And I will not test you on these myths. There's too many. But there are a lot of myths about psychology. And here they are. And here they are described. And there's little Albert, and that's Watson. And the moon and Mozart, and it was some southern state like Georgia or Alabama. Because of misinterpretation of this research, they gave pregnant women Mozart CDs. That was a waste. I am death on astrology. Don't get me started. And so there's Muse. This I do want you to know. The mind is a product of a physical machine. We are consciously aware of only a small part of our mental activities. I mean, what's making my fingers move right now? If you're taking notes, who's guiding your hand? The example I like to give in class is you think you should get up in the morning and you're lying in bed nice and cozy, and suddenly your arms are taking your covers off. Who made that decision? Um, uh, we adapt, which is a good thing. And like it or not, and by the way, some person stalked me and threatened to kill me because of this one. This course is physically changing your brain. And he did not like that concept. He thought I'd gotten into his brain and I was manipulating him. Everything that happens to you gets inside your brain and manipulates you as long as you're functioning and alive. I don't. So researchers at work This you will be tested on. This is testable. And it's a nice overview of some research. And if there are review questions here that I can use for the 10-point questions in the quizzes, I will do it. So definitely try to answer them. And you certainly should know Muse. And that's it. So I hope you found this interesting. This course has relevance to so much of human behavior and politics and business and dating and just wars, prejudice, just everything. I virtually defy you to not find parts of this course interesting. So this is the end of functionally week 1, because every day is a week, and we will go on to chapter 2. Thanks for listening in.